we'll take up two more techniques of data collection today, and these techniques are very sophisticated and advanced in nature. When I say that these techniques, mainly interview and observation, are advanced techniques of data collection, I don't mean that the other techniques which we have discussed earlier, like questionnaire or schedule, are obsolete and redundant. What I mean is that interview and observation becomes effective where techniques like questionnaire and schedule are not useful. Let us see in details how these two techniques. Let us have a look on the outline. Here we see there is mention of interview, how it is advanced over a schedule, then its types and its definition, then about role of the interviewer. Similarly, on observation, again it has been said that it is an advance over interview. Again, there is a mention of its definition and types and how it is use of vision and region. And then it has been followed by comparison. That is the concluding part. So far as interview is concerned, I have said that it is an advance over schedule. We need to understand this thing. We have seen in the last lecture that schedule is the kind of data collection techniques where the researcher carries the set of questions to the respondent, ask the questions from the respondents, and whatever the respondent's answer is, he or she writes on the note or the she on the answer sheet. So what happens that in the case of schedule, the researcher is only supposed to answer those questions which have been given in the questionnaire. He cannot or she cannot ask any other question. Even if he wishes to ask some extra question, he or she cannot ask this question. Here, sometimes what happens that the researcher realizes in the course of questioning from the respondent that had there been an freedom or an opportunity to him to ask some additional questions, it would have been better. And there only the need of interview comes into being. From this perspective, interview has a definite advantage over schedule, and that is precisely the reason I have mentioned that interview as a techniques of data collection is a kind of an advance over schedule. The second important thing about interview is that success of interview technique depends solely on the personality and quality of the interviewer. If the interviewer is smart, he will ask interesting questions, and if he's well read, if he is aware of the subject under investigation, he will ask each and every relevant questions from the respondent without annoying him. And we see these days on television channels a number of programs are being screened, those programs based on this technique, interview technique. For example, we see there is a program, very popular and program called Aapki Adalat, where Rajas Sharma is not very loud in his approach. He's very mild, very passionate, but he never spare anyone and ask all kind of questions, and that is why the programs become interesting. What I'm trying to say that the quality of interview or a good interview lies in the fact that he should he should be polite, but he should ask each and every question. So for the purpose of practical reason, for purpose of students, so that the students could note it down, I have mentioned a definition of interview. Although it is not required in PPT, but in order to help the students from the viewpoint of examination, I have mentioned this, and I would read it out. It is a technique of gathering data, that is information, by asking verbal questions on the subject by the interviewer, which is answered by the interviewee. The process involves at least two persons, interviewer and interviewee. There could be more depending upon the situation. I would like to explain this definition in detail. So technique, I just said that it's a technique of data collection by asking questions by the interviewer, I mean the person who is asking the questions, from the interviewee, that is the respondent. And in this process, minimum there is a requirement of two persons, one interviewer and the other is the respondent or the interviewee. But in certain circumstances, there is one interviewer and there are several respondents. For example, you must have seen on several issues whether a television reporter goes to the market or to the people to ask their view about certain issues. For example, whether these days people are very concerned about the Chinese goods sold in Indian market, and particularly after this India-China border tension, and there is a call for boycott of Chinese goods. So now when the television reporter goes to the people and ask a number of people whether India should go for a total boycott of Chinese goods or similar questions, that is it practically possible to say goodbye to Chinese goods in India, then the reporter finds different kind of answers from the respondents. This is a kind of situation when there is only one interviewer and there are several several respondents. Or on the other hand, when a candidate goes for an interview for a job, selection of for a job, there may be in the interview board several persons, but the candidate is one. So in this situation, there is one interviewee and there are several interviewers. Now, there are several types of interview. This could be unstructured or a structure. See, unstructured interview is you have freedom. You can ask any type of questions. And in structured interview, there are set pattern. There are fixed questions. You cannot break the rule. Similarly, the more or less the same in the case of a standardized and unstandardized interview. Then there could be an individual versus group interview. There could be an interview of one person by one person or a group interview. And I was just talking about group interview when I was talking about the reporter and asking the people on several issues, or on the other hand, on the contrary, when the candidate appearing for a job, appearing before the interview board. Then, similarly, there are several other personal and non-personal and other. There are several types of interview mentioned, but all kind of interview types are not important. The main types I have already discussed. Then the more important thing about this, which we should discuss in greater detail, is the qualities of the interviewer. See, I have said earlier that the success of interview as a technique of data collection, as a sophisticated technique of data collection, will depend on the quality of the interviewer. And the interviewer plays a crucial role because he is the key player. He is the king, in fact. And for a good interviewer, there are certain qualities. What are those qualities? We'll discuss in detail each and every quality of an interviewer. A good interviewer, if you want to become a good interviewer, you need to develop habit of reading regularly. You should be well informed and very clear about your subject. If you are going to ask the Prime Minister of India on issues related to migrants workers, the reverse migration after lockdown, you should be well aware of each and every information related to the number of migrants, those who have gone back to their villages, which are the states where there are largest number of reverse migration, which are the cities from where there have been greater number of reverse migration gone to the villages, and what are the complaints of the migrants going back to their villages. What are the problems faced by these migrants? If you don't know these issues, what kind of question will you ask to the Prime Minister or for that matter any minister or any official? So what I'm trying to say, that a good interviewer should be well read and well informed, and he should be very clear about his subject and all kind of issues related to the subject under investigation. The second quality is that, and the student must keep this in mind, and this is very important and important for all kind of research activities. That is research. You see, before going for the interview, you must develop a habit of going for a fresh research. Even if you are well aware of everything beforehand, even if you are very confident of your knowledge about the subject matter, don't rely on your knowledge. Don't trust your confidence. Please, this is my request once more, that please go for a fresh research, because even in the last moment you'll come across some important information, and that I am telling you on the basis of my own experience. Because in the last moment, I have seen some mistakes comes across. Similarly, you come across some important information even in the last moment. So that is why I said that you must develop this habit of doing research before going for the interview, or before writing something, or going for a discussion or something. This is again very important. Then a good interviewer must develop this technique of handling interview. How to make a good start with a good morning or good afternoon, and asking, general type of questions not related to the subject from the respondent, so that he could make a personal rapport with the respondent, and then ask each and every important questions, and even sometimes not relevant question, to make a good atmosphere before the interviewee, and to give an end with a thanksgiving. And in between, the smart interviewer will also not hesitate to ask difficult questions. So this is again this technique of handling interview is also important, and particularly to make a start and give an end to the interview. Then this is the another quality of interviewer is related to his personality. Even if somebody is not having this quality, he or she should try to imbibe this, develop this style of You see, keeping a good smile. You should be smiling all the time. There should be a smile on the face to make interview lively and create a lively atmosphere when the interview is going on, so that there should be a kind of a pressure on the respondent and he is jolly well answer all the questions. Next is the quality of promptness. The interviewer should be very prompt. The next quality is presence of mind. The presence of mind helps him in raising some additional issues, even if it has not been mentioned in the interview guide or not part of the program. He can ask or she can ask some additional question. That will depend on the presence of mind. The next point, that is, the interviewer should be very cool and calm and entertaining. And last, but perhaps the most important thing, and you should always keep this in mind, and particularly those who are planning to make their career in reporting in television or newspaper, you should never be aggressive at all. Sometimes a situation comes, you feel that you are being humiliated. Even then you should avoid the situation, but you should never be aggressive. So these are the qualities of a good interview that a student must keep these qualities in his or her mind. Now, coming over to observation, let me begin by defining this technique, this sophisticated technique of data collection, which is unique in itself. And the definition is, it is an act of inquiry by naked eyes, with the aim of reading and revealing every aspect of issues under study for drawing meaningfully objective conclusions. Let me explain this definition. This is an act of inquiry by naked eyes. You are merely observing the whole situation. You are not raising any issue. You are not asking any questions. You are not doing anything. You are simply watching it out. And recording and trying to remember each and every aspect of what is happening around you. Or suppose if you are going for an observation of a community, say for example, tribal community, the tribals are very traditional people. They are very simple, and those who go to their area from outside, the tribals consider them as dikkus, trouble creator. They find them strange. They don't like their presence. This is what it is said about the common, tribal people in India or outside, because they are still initial stage of development of human civilization. They don't have any exposure to the outside world. Therefore, the observer, whenever he or she goes to the field, he should never let them know that what is the purpose of their coming to the area. So this is a situation about which particularly I have said that it is an act of inquiry by naked eyes. So here your naked eyes are at work, not your mouth. You are not asking any question. You are not asking them to write something, answer your questions in black and white. You're simply involved in watching and noting it down on your memory. And I have said the next point is that the interview, as I said, that interview is the advance over schedule. Similarly, I have mentioned here that this observation is a kind of an advance over interview. And I have mentioned again that where interview ends, observation begins. You see, there was a time when these interviewer must have realized that there are, in certain circumstances, the people whom they want to interview, they are not willing to answer their questions, or they avoid their questions. So they must have realized that there is a need of a different kind of an technique, and here comes the need of observation. And particularly in such kind of situations, the need of observation must have been realize. So observation is a kind of technique of data collection that is based on only your vision, your eyesight, and your region, your mind. So these two things are at interplay: your vision, your eyesight, and your region. You look at things, you try to understand which important act of a person, of a tribal, people is important. What kind of behavior are more important from the purpose of, from the viewpoint of your studies, and what aspects are not. And you note down, you try to remember when you in your mind the important issues, and when you come back to your residence, you note down in greater detail. So you use your vision, your eyesight, and your region, your mind. This technique of called observation appears very simple. When somebody says that observation, you need to simply watch. You don't do anything else. You are supposed to watch only and note it down when you come back. It appears that it's very simple, and it's not very difficult, but actually it is very difficult. Once you go to the field, you'll realize that observation technique is very sophisticated, because you have enormous freedom. You can note it down anything. You are reading each and every aspect of the people under your investigation. If you are visiting a village, you are watching and you are noting down each and every aspect, each and every behavior of the people in the village or in the tribal area. But at the same time, that is the last important point related to observation, is that it is very sensitive and risky. Because it is sensitive, that sometimes when people realize that what you are doing are objectionable, even if it is not objectionable, they can raise issues. Similarly, it can unnecessarily create risk. Now there are several, the textbooks mentions a number of types of observation. These are, I have mentioned, and you must have a look on these types of observation. These are participant and non-participant, systematic, unsystematic, naive, scientific, structured, unstructured, natural, laboratory, open, hidden, direct, indirect, covert, overt. And only, the literal meaning of these terms are sufficient, and it is mentioned in the title itself. What is more important is the most popular types mentioned in the standard textbooks. And in this context, I would talk of two important textbooks, one by Goody and Hatt and the other by P.B. Young. These two books talk of uncontrolled or non-controlled observation. This is one type, and the second is control. In one type, the subject under investigation is uncontrolled. The observer does not have any control over the subject under study. If you are visiting a tribal area, you don't have any control. You are simply a onlooker. You are just watching things, but you cannot direct the tribals to move this way or that way. This is what I'm trying to say, that you don't have any control over the situation, over the study under investigation. And the second is control. For example, control observation is the kind of observation where things are under your control. If you are working in a laboratory, if you are working on a subject under laboratory, you have complete control. That I'll explain later. But to begin with, I would like to focus more on control and their types, that is participant and non-participant. And particularly, participant observation is a unique kind of a data collection techniques that has been discuss time and again in greater details. And I would like to give special attention on this technique of data collection, because participant observation is a kind of technique where the researchers, without disclosing his or her actual purpose and identity, manages to join or enter into the group or community to study the events and behavior of the people who otherwise are not willing to open up. I was just talking about the people of tribal areas. You see, or for example, if you are doing a research on the problem of widows in India, do you think that the widows of this country will answer your queries? Or if you are working on a sensitive issues like sexual harassment of the working ladies in the metropolitan cities, do you think that these working women will answer your questions? You see, this country, although we are living in 21st century, but yet we are part of a traditional Indian society. Despite metamorphic change of Indian society after 70 years of independence, still there is hell of a difference between male and female. And even if these working women in the metropolitans are very well advanced, very educated on issues, sensitive issues like sexual abuse, they will not like to open up. They will not answer your question. Therefore, in such situation, this participant observation, although this, so far as sexual misbehavior with the women are concerned, this participant observation will not work. Participant observation would be very effective in the case of study of tribal community, in the study of, say for example, some gangsters. If you have the courage to join them without disclosing your identity and purpose of your study, if you don't disclose this, if you have this kind of courage, and people have, if you go through anthropological literature, if you go through sociological literature, and I have mentioned a number of examples later on, people have done these kind of things in the past. So that is why I wanted to explain this participant observation in greater detail, that it is a kind of a observation where you don't disclose your identity. You don't tell the people whom you are watching that you have joined them for certain purpose and you are a researcher. You simply behave like as if you are a businessman. You have come here for you are looking for a shop for business. You are looking for a house to start this factory here, or similar kind of things. This is one participant observation. But what are the distinctions? How I said that this is a very unique kind of technique of data collection, because it is a very useful and very effective technique of data collection for the purpose of qualitative study, a qualitative study like the study of tribal community. Similarly, as I said earlier, that where techniques like interview does not work, the tribals will never respond to your queries. They will never tell you whatever you want to ask. So the only technique left before you is the technique of participant observation, where without disclosing your identity, you go and you study them. Then one more important point, and this is very important, that participant observation, as I said, this is done or adopted in the case of ethnographic studies. It is always preferred by the anthropologists. Anthropologists are those who go for the study of the other society, and sociologists are the scholars who the study of their own society. So the anthropologists are those who will go and join the tribal community and study them. So, therefore, this, for the purpose of anthropological study, participant observation is very effective. When we talk of participant observation, something comes to our mind, and that is the issue of sting operation. You must have seen sting operation in the television. Even if you have not seen, you must have heard of it. Under sting operation, the television reporter approaches some big, some important politician or minister, and this has happened in this country. You see, you must have heard of Tahalka operation, Tahalka sting operation. And the reporter also does not tell him that he is from certain television group or some newspaper organization. He will say that he's a middleman. He wants to do some business work, and he wants to spend money on this. And he tries to snatch certain photographs that is hidden camera in his button or fountain pen or something like that. So this is called a sting operation. In this case also, as in the case of participant observation, the researcher, and here in this case the reporter, does not deliberately disclose his or her identity, and therefore I have made a deliberate comparison between participant observation and sting operation. Now, I have mentioned about a couple of examples of participant observation, and you will find in the textbooks, standard textbooks, name of Anderson, who adopted participant observation technique for the study of Hobo tribe in America. Then there is a very well-known name called William Whites, who adopted this technique of participant observation while doing the study of street corner society. And in India, Professor M.N. Srinivas, popularly called the father of sociology in India, his study of religion and society among the courts of South India, where he talks of Sanskritization and Westernization, is based on this technique of participant observation. Now, the second type of uncontrolled observation is participant observation. One is participant observation, where you participate in the community without disclosing your identity. The other one is you participate in the community, but you don't disclose your identity. You don't hide your purpose of coming to the community. And the example here is, again, the name of a very renowned sociologist, Professor Andre Bete, whose study of caste, class and power, changing patterns of stratification in a Tanjore village, is based on non-participant observation technique of data collections. Now, coming to the last, see the control observation. The first is non-control or uncontrolled. Then there are two types, and the last is control observation. In this case, you have complete control. I have already mentioned about this control over the situation. If you are doing a study on the changes in the societies on the basis of films, you see, what are films? Films are basically reflections of society. Films and literature, it is said that these are nothing but the reflections of society. And if you study the films or films production after independence, right from days of Satyajit Ray to right now, you can make a very interesting study of changes brought about in the Indian society. And therefore, if you are doing such type of a study in the laboratory, the entire everything is under control. You can see a movie right now, and again you can see this movie in the evening. So the thing is under your control. Similarly, if you are doing a study of a small group, like students in a small classroom, you can go to this class every day and watch the behavior of students, how they react to the see the queries when you ask questions to them, and you need to do one thing simply, that you need to behave like a teacher, that you are a new teacher to the class, and you have come here to teach them. And then in course of teaching them, taking their class, you can jolly well study and watch and note down their behavior. So this is again a case of a control observation. Now there is a comparison, and that comparison, and on that there is a conclusion. You see, I have said interview is verbal, while observation is silent expecting and watching. Interview has to be two-sided. There has to be an interviewer and a respondent. But observation is one-sided. The two are best suited for different situations, very different from each other, but best suited for their own purpose. And nowadays, interview has got a special importance, precisely because of the fact that this technique of data collection is being used not only for the study, for the purpose of study, but it is also used for the purpose of entertainment. A number of television programs are being planned on the basis of interview technique. These are this Kaun Banega Crorepati, that is anchored by Amitabh Bachchan, then Coffee with Karan, Aapki Adalat, and many more programs. Thank you so much.